Overwatering kills 1 in 4 trees that landscapers install and warranty. This is a $230 million a year problem for these 8 companies. So these companies offer a 2-year warranty, and if the tree dies within that period, they have to remove and replace that dead tree. And that can get expensive when you're talking about trees that cost more than $5,000. So this is our target market: landscapers who install and warranty trees that are above $5,000. It's a $1 billion a year industry. And these are 2 pictures of trees that are each above $5,000. On the left, you have a tree that's being put in with a hydraulic mechanical tree spader. And on the right, that tree is $15,000. It's so large that they have to use a crane to put it in, and they have to dig the hole with a backhoe. There's 3 main causes that trees die in such high quantities. Number 1 is compaction. So when you're digging with a hydraulic tree spader, there's a layer of soil around the root ball that gets compressed so much that when you water it, the water actually pools up from the bottom. So at the surface, it might look dry, but underneath, you're actually drowning the tree. So you're depriving it of the oxygen that it needs to survive. The second reason is assumption. So when anybody sees something wrong with a tree, they just assume it needs water. But what they don't take into consideration is maybe that there's too much water is causing the problem to begin with. So there's no data that's giving them that information. The third common reason is that it's planted too deep. So when it's planted too deep, you're stressing the roots for oxygen, because oxygen actually resides mostly in the top foot of soil. So when you're planting it too deep, they have to grow up toward the surface of the soil. And so water balance in that situation is a lot more important. So if you over-irrigate, there's a lot more likelihood that you're going to kill the tree. The solution to this problem is a no-maintenance sensor that sends accurate soil moisture data from a tree to a landscaper's screen. And this is the support that we have. I didn't sanction that solution, but these companies did. Brightview, Bartlett, and More Than Trees. Together, they bring in more than $2.2 billion a year. And these are signed letters from these companies saying that if Reservoir commercializes our product, they're going to buy it. So our value proposition is that we'll save landscapers $1,700 per tree. And that comes out to 300% return on investment because they're paying us $600 for our product. And that breaks down to a time savings, tree savings, and water savings. So instead of a landscaper having to drive to a job site to measure soil moisture, now they can just open up an app or view our website to get that data. And if we save 50% of the trees that currently die, we're offering a $600 value there. And lastly, it's not an economic driver, but helping them comply with water conservation laws that are popping up all over the country. For instance, California Assembly Bill 1881. There's 300,000 trees that are installed in the US. 180,000 are installed, warranted, and above $5,000. That's our serviceable market. If we can capture 10% of that market, we'll have reservoir sensors on 18,000 trees per year. We're going to charge $600 a tree over the 2-year warranty period. That's $200 for hardware and $15 a month for software. At 18,000 trees a year, which is our market share, if we get 1 sensor per tree, we have a $5 million revenue per year. And this revenue has already started coming in. I'm happy to announce that a landscaper at Augusta National last week bought our MVP for $2,500, and he agreed to provide consistent feedback for R&D over the next 6 to 9 months. So the competition is not meeting the needs of these landscapers, and I know that because I conducted 12 interviews with the target market. I've gotten 3 signed letters, and this shows that 0 of them use remote soil moisture sensors. And there's a reason for that. The soil moisture sensors that are around right now, they work for certain markets, but not for landscapers. And I'll tell you why. The first kind measures soil water content. And the problem with this is that the availability of water to your tree depends on the soil texture. So if you have a clay soil versus a sandy soil and you have 10% soil moisture, you're actually going to be drowning the tree in the sand soil, whereas in the clay, it's going to die because it can't get any water because the soil particles hold it too tightly. So that's out. If you've got 100 different sites and they're all heterogeneous soil, that's not an option. The other potential sensor that they have that they don't use are water availability sensors. And that gets you right to how much water is available to my plants. So it's better, but there's a fatal flaw with these sensors that I'll get to in 2 slides. But I want to show you that I'm not just making this up. So this is adapted from my soil physics professor's textbook. He literally wrote the textbook on soil physics. And this shows that ideal water content changes with type of soil. It also shows that ideal water availability is consistent over all soil types. Let me just go through that again. So that range in between the red bars is ideal water content. It changes. And the range in between the blue bars doesn't change for any soil type. Okay, so now we're going to get to the crux of it. Why do water availability sensors fail? This is the reason. When you put a water availability sensor in the ground, all of the water gets pulled out by drying soil. When all the water gets pulled out, you have air entry into the system, and it causes the device to fail, completely fail. In order to get it to work, you have to go to the job site, disassemble the sensor, fill it with water, reassemble it, make sure it's sealed and airtight, and then cross your fingers and hope that it works for a couple days. This is proof of that. I got grants to buy a $1,000 decagon tensiometer, which is the best water availability sensor you can buy. I put it in a clay pot of soil next to my sensor, which costs $50 to make. And the decagon you can see in the red, it failed within 2 days. It stopped being able to measure soil water availability. My sensor kept going. It measured for 4 days, and then when we irrigated on day 4, it bounced back up to saturation, and it kept continuing. So this is a huge step forward in tensiometer technology. And just to sum it up, landscapers need a no-maintenance, accurate, and affordable sensor. Okay, so these competitors might have 2 of the 3 or 1 of the 3, and that works for certain markets, but it doesn't work for landscapers. And that's where I'm coming in with my product. So the biggest part of this is I have a patent pending on this disruptive technology. This is something that nobody else in the world has, and honestly, I'm shocked that I'm even saying that to you. I'm surprising myself. But we've raised $15,000 in grants from non-dilutive grants. So I still have all the equity in the company. We have 3 letters of support from landscapers that bring in over $2 billion a year. We have drafted a $250,000 grant for National Science Foundation that we'll be applying for in June. And we have 6 articles written about the company, and 34,000 of those are actually printed. There's 34,000 printed copies, not including what's on the internet. So I'm asking for $10,000 today. $5,000 is going to go to custom electronics design through Tovella Manufacturing in Alpharetta, Georgia. $3,000 is going to go to a video for investors and sales, and WellSaid Media in Ithaca, New York is going to take care of that. The last $2,000 is going to go to new sensor prototypes from the UGA instrument shop. I'm also asking for an introduction to a prospective CTO. I need somebody that knows Internet of Things, distributed sensor networks, and big data management. The agricultural market is way bigger than the landscaping market, and that's something I'm looking to get into in a few years. There's 56 million irrigated acres in the United States. 10% of those currently have soil moisture sensors. So if I can capture 10% of that serviceable market, we're going to have 560,000 acres with reservoir sensors. The model with 560,000 acres and 4 acres per sensor would bring in $240 million a year in revenue. And I'm not just doing this for the money. I actually care about water conservation. Water conservation can help with yield loss. If you allocate water wisely, the cost of drought will be reduced. So for instance, in California in 2015, they lost $2.7 billion from the drought. And that came out of a UC Santa Barbara study. Also contributing to, or also a problem with water use as it is right now is that we're over-irrigating. A lot of agrochemicals are running off, polluting the Gulf of Mexico. Actually, every year there's a dead zone the size of Connecticut and Rhode Island combined where the fish can't live because all the oxygen has been depleted from the chemical runoff. So the common solution to these 2 problems is better irrigation. Thank you.
Hey, congratulations on the patent pending that you. Can you give us a little more information on that? Because if you're the other big guys doing it do not have your secret sauce. Maybe just give us a little more color on that.
Yeah, sure. So a key thing that I realized when I did interviews with landscapers is that they want to know water availability at discrete depths in the soil profile. So they want to know 1 foot down, 2 feet down, 3 feet down. There's no sensor on the market that can do that. And our patent I'm submitting in, the non-provisional is due in a week, April 22nd, so about 10 days. That's the only patent in the world that does what they want. So I'm not saying we're better than all other soil moisture sensors, but what I'm saying is we're targeting our product to a very niche market that these other companies have overlooked for some reason or just don't care about.
Talk some more about the landscapers you've discussed this with the $2.2 billion of sales.
Sure. So Brightview is the biggest landscaping company in the U.S. They alone bring in $2 billion of sales. So I did an interview with them, and 33% of their sales come from trees in my target market. So warranted, installed, more than $5,000. So we're talking 33% of $2 billion comes from that company. So they were the first letter on that screen. Tony Fargnoli, he's a Bay Area manager for Brightview. He wrote that letter. Basically, one of the standout things from that letter is that he said, if Reservoir saved 10% of the trees that currently die, it would generate a revenue surplus of $16.5 million a year. So we're talking big money.
I could not follow fast enough. I saw Brightview. What were the other 2 or 3 that were up there?
Brightview, Bartlett, and More Than Trees. So More Than Trees actually harvests and relocates trees for Augusta National Golf Club. And that was actually my first customer. Bartlett doesn't warranty trees, but they still wrote the letter. It was their vice president of research at Bartlett. They have a research. They make so much money that they can actually pay people to do research without, it's insane, yeah.
Hey, Jess, you've done a nice job.
Thank you.
So $600 on a $5,000 tree on average, 12% of the tree. And out of those trees, though, how many of them die of overwatering? And how are you still going to inspect for disease, other forms of tree decay? I mean, you've still got it won't keep you from ever coming back to see the tree.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
So, is there a low-cost sensor for home use out there right now? I look at the water that's spent on residential irrigation. Would it ever work for a market like that?
This could work for home use, and the reason is because it measures availability, and that's what people want to know. But I think you kind of asked 2 questions. Do you want me to go after the first one or the second one? So, okay, so I'll try to remember the first one. Can you refresh my memory on that?
I'm really more concerned about, is there a low-cost way to produce a residential?
For like residential. Right now, because as a homeowner, you have 1 yard, right? So you can use a soil water content sensor in your yard because it's just 1 yard. So you can go out and buy a sensor, for maybe $100 that does the job. But if you're a landscaper and you have multiple sites, right, that are all different soil texture, that sensor is not going to work for you because the variability in the particle size of the soil changes how much water is available to your plants. So what I'm thinking is we're going to get into the landscaping market, then get into the ag market, and then it's going to trickle down. The price of the sensor is going to go way down. They're going to see that the accuracy is better than other sensors, and then we can get into the commercial market.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question. I assume with a 5-year warranty, the first year is the most critical year?
But it's actually a 2-year warranty that they offer.
2-year.
Right.
So within the 2 year, if I'm one of your clients, can I recycle that sensor to somewhere else, or do I have to give it back to you?
Well, the idea is that they would be using one sensor for the whole 2-year period.
Right.
And if they want to recycle the sensor, I'm all for that because I'm still charging the software fee of $15 a month.
Cool.
There's also the possibility that we'll do like planned obsolescence where the sensor fails after 2 years.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that.
Cool. Thank you.